I've got some allergies and like that.
What was me yesterday after the park? I'm going to like,
We use university companies. We send them the supplies and we break it down.
Julie, you good?
Steady rate for everything except for the water consumption.
City manager, you all set? Welcome everyone to the City of Evans City Council meeting for April 4th, 2022. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Spear.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Councilmember Castle.
Here.
Councilmember Mortensen.
Here.
Thank you. We are fortunate, and I'm fortunate enough to give two very great proclamations tonight. And the first proclamation we're going to do is proclaiming April 10th, 2022 as Americanism Day in the city of Evans, Colorado. Whereas in this time and throughout our history, the American Republic has found strength in its citizens' loyalty to the great national principles and ideals upon which this country was founded. And whereas everyday Americans at home and abroad bear witness to their national allegiance by extending deep devotion and sacrifice, some even at the cost of their own lives. Whereas the continuing threat of terrorism on this great nation has only helped to unite and strengthen America, making Americans more determined, more generous, and proud to meet the challenges we face in defending our freedom. And whereas loyal citizens should stand up and be proud that we are Americans and should make it clearly known to all that our democracy will long endure. Whereas it is fitting that we set aside one day of the year where every citizen may pause to reflect on his debt to the devotion of other Americans and to bear witness in every appropriate way to his own Americanism. Now, therefore, I, Brian Rudy, Mayor for the City of Evans, do hereby proclaim April 10th, 2022 as Americanism Day in the City of Evans. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand to be affixed the official seal of the City of Evans this 4th day of April, 2022. And I do see we have some very special people from the VFW here today. If they'd like to come accept this proclamation. Thank you guys so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for inviting us very much.
Grab a picture and you guys will symbol the tool today.
Did you get it?
I would like to just thank the City of Evans very much for all the support they've given us through COVID, through our Thanksgiving programs, and we hope you come out and enjoy the Americanism that we're having on April 10th at the VFW. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the city also for the support. You know, we do a lot more than just meet at the post. There's volunteering. We work with the Catholic charities. So there's, just because you're not eligible to become a post member, we do welcome volunteers who have time to donate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for everything you guys do over there for our community and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have one more proclamation. That proclamation is National Library Week 2022. Whereas today's libraries are more about what they can do with and for their communities and not just about what they have on their shelves. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions, often in the heart of the cities, towns, schools, and academic campuses. Whereas libraries serve people of all ages, interests, and backgrounds, providing the resources and space to engage in lifelong learning. Whereas libraries offer equipment and professional staff support to utilize technology, programs, and services, often free or with nominal charges to its users. Whereas libraries are a resource for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, and sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas we recognize librarians as information professionals who provide expertise, services, and guidance for patrons to access credible sources and material, making their own informed decisions about the world today. Whereas libraries provide access to and display a wide range of information, not just a majority opinion or single perspective. And whereas librarians hold the professional values of diversity, equality, and inclusion to meet the needs of all users. Whereas America is celebrating National Library Week, including April 5th as National Library Workers' Day, and the immeasurable contributions made by library workers. April 6th as National Outreach Day, showing library services are not limited to their physical location. And April 7th as Take Action for Libraries Day, encouraging community support for libraries. Now, therefore, I, Brian Rudy, Mayor for the City of Evans, do hereby proclaim National Library Week, April 3rd through the 9th, 2022, in the City of Evans. During this week, we encourage all residents to visit libraries and explore all they have to offer. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be the official seal of the City of Evans on this 4th day of April, 2022. And I know we have somebody here from the library as well. If you'd like to step up, thank you for being here tonight. How are you tonight, sir? Good. Thank you for being here. Say a few words.
Well, I'll be pretty brief because I know we have a lot on the agenda tonight. So I just wanted to first off say thank you to the City of Evans and, of course, the Mayor and Council for this recognition. As libraries continue to evolve, we are really appreciative of that recognition. As the Mayor read in the proclamation, tomorrow was actually National Library Workers' Day. So I would just encourage you all, if you have a favorite librarian, thank them in some way. Just stop by or shoot them an email, put a post up on social media. It is really appreciated, especially coming out of COVID. That means a lot to them as well. So I'd just like to thank the city for being a great partner, and we look forward to continuing to serve and do better for everyone out there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Does anyone in the audience have anything for the City Council that is not on the agenda this evening? Okay. Anyone online? No, man. Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda, item 3, approval of the March 15th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Excuse me. Or do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah.
If we could remove item number 7 under new business, please.
Item number 7 is scratched. Take a motion. I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
Motion second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now consent agenda, approval of the March 15th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration, new business. Consideration of resolution number 9-2022 to make factual findings determining annexation eligibility for the annexation of certain real property owned by Hunt Brothers Properties, and we will hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first of 3 items on your agenda now that are related to the annexation and zoning of a single of this property that would be ultimately used for an industrial use. That our Community Development Director, Ann Bess Johnson, has an overview for this action and our process for tonight.
All right, thank you, Jim. So the agenda memo that's in your packet does accompany Resolution 9-2022 and presents the consideration to City Council to annex 2 parcels of land into the City of Evans. Again, as Jim Becklenberg mentioned, there are 3 items that will be before you this evening: the annexation, change of zone of the parcels that you are annexing, change of zone of parcel that's adjacent. What will come before you in the future will be a development agreement for the site plan. Under administrative review is a site plan for gravel mining and an asphalt batch plant, drainage, access, flood hazard development permit, and building permits. So this paints the overall picture of everything that's happening in public hearings and everything that's happening from an administrative process. So the properties under consideration for annexation tonight is this property right here and this property, not the smaller parcels there, but again, this property and this property. They total 114.3 acres of land. On February 15th, 2022, the matter was referred to City Council pursuant to the Evans Municipal Code and set for a public hearing on April 4th, 2022 through Resolution 6, 2022. So this is a 3-mile plan for the City of Evans, and these parcels sit right here, just on the southeastern portion of that 3-mile plan. The applications were referred to the town of LaSalle, Weld County, and Weld County as well, and no comments have been received to date. So these are images from Weld County Road 35, about 100 yards into the property, on Weld County Road 35, 100 yards north of 394. So we have looking west on the left, looking east on the right, looking north on the left, looking south on the right. The property, again, it's this parcel, and it's this parcel here. The land, the portion of the property that's in this cross-hatched area is in the expected floodway. What's in this blue here is in the flood plain. Development is prohibited in the floodway. Development through flood hazard development permit process can be permitted after review in the flood plain. So quite a bit of the property is encumbered by floodway. So on the screen right now and in your packet material, there is a process flow, and that contains pre-application requirements, application requirements, public notification requirements, and then public hearings. And so staff and the attorney's office have reviewed the application for annexation and find that the statutory requirements for an annexation have been met. And there are recommendations in your packets this evening, and I am available to answer any questions, and I know a representative of the applicant is also here to answer any questions that you may have. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Great, thank you. Anyone have questions of staff or comments on just this item on the annexation?
I have no questions for staff, but based on the presentation given to us, they do meet the criteria, so I'm in favor of it.
I echo that.
Tammy? Laura?
You guys know how I feel about annexation south of the river, so there you go.
You want to say anything? Or you good?
I think what I have to say is
It's on other
other items.
Thank you. Amanda? Councilmember Meal?
Well, this is one of the few annexations that I would be in favor of in a floodplain.
Yeah. Great. If there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 09-2022 as proposed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 9-2022 as proposed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 6-1. Next item on the agenda, consideration of ordinance number 759-22, an application to annex 2 parcels of land into the city of Evans and to zone each parcel as industrial I-3 for natural resources extraction and treatment. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This next step will address the annexation and or the annexation and the zoning for 2 parcels. I'll turn it over to Ann Beth Johnson.
All right, thank you, Jim, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So this now is the second step. You've just annexed or determined that 2 parcels are eligible to be annexed into Evans. And now this next item will actually annex and zone the 2 parcels. So again, the parcel location here is Weld County Road 394. This is the right-of-way for 35th Avenue. 394 will remain in unincorporated Weld County. And again, these two parcels total 114.3 acres in size. There we have the 3 mile plan again. The views, the portions of the parcel that are in the floodway as well as the floodplain. And then there is a process flow that is detailed in your packets. It's also on this slide for members of the audience that might not know about processing changes of zones in the city of Evans. There are pre-application processes, there are application processes, there are public notice requirements that were met by surrounding property owner notice, published notice in the Greeley Tribune, as well as posting of a sign, and then there are public hearings. Planning Commission is able to hear a request for a change of zone before property is annexed into the city. That recommendation then goes to you. Should property be annexed, then you can consider their recommendation. And Planning Commission on March 22nd did hear that application in a public hearing and determined that it was appropriate to zone it to industrial I3. In the city of Evans, industrial I3 is the only zone district that allows natural resources extraction and treatment. And so that is what they are asking for. Now, I3 allows lots of other uses, including crematoriums, kennels, junkyards, livestock trailer washout, for example. The applicant has agreed to only allow natural resources and extraction and treatment in this zone district. So all those other uses that could be contemplated in the industrial 3 zone district will not occur unless somebody would come back and change the zone to allow those. So this is purely for natural resources extraction and treatment only, which could allow gravel mining and an asphalt batch plant, which then goes through the site plan development process. So this is the criteria for approval. The criteria for approval is in your packet material. It was on the city's website prior to the hearing. This details all of the criteria that must be met in order for an application to be considered for a change of zone. And again, instead of reading everything to you, staff, referral agencies, the engineering department, fire department, everybody has reviewed this application and found that the criteria for approval has been met in accordance with the staff report in your packet of material. And that, again, the applicant is present.
You might also just mention that this was recommended by Planning Commission. Did you?
Thank you. Yes, this was recommended for approval by Planning Commission on March 22nd. And that was reflected in the process flow diagram. And with that, this concludes staff's presentation. I do know that the applicant is also present, and there are recommended motions in your packet.
Great, thank you, Ann. Anyone have questions of staff or the applicant or any comments?
I've got comments, but if anybody else has questions first, they can go ahead and answer.
Mayor, this actually should have been public. Well, it's noticed as a public hearing.
Okay, it wasn't on our.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
I didn't get it on the agenda.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change it real quick, and I'll open a public hearing. So I will open public hearing for ordinance number 759-22, an application to annex 2 parcels of land into the city of Evans and to zone each parcel in industrial I3 for national resource extraction and treatment. I will open the public hearing. We did just hear from staff. Now it will be time for the audience. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? If you do, go ahead and step up, state your name, please, sir, and welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Steve Ward, Asphalt, members of the council, Steve Ward, Asphalt Specialties and Hunt Brothers Properties were the applicant. Staff did a very good job of presenting. I do have a brief But actually, it sounds like I'd be better off to just wait to see if there are any questions. I do have about a 10-minute presentation if you're interested. Otherwise, I can wait for questions or answer any comments from the public.
All I have to do is public hearing. It's your time.
I'll run through it.
Sure.
Recovering attorney. It's hard for me to be brief. Asphalt Specialties. We're been in business for 30 years in Colorado, family owned, based in Henderson. We build roads. That's what we do. I have 3 lifelines with me tonight. Chad Cox with Western Engineering, Dave King, who handles our mining activities basically and operates the mines once they're open, and Greg Garris, who handles our regulatory matters. All 3 are here. Greg is also a Jayhawks fan, and it was all I could do to get him to come tonight. So there we are. Again, we're looking at 3 parcels tonight. Parcel A is already in the city of Evans. Parcels B and C are you just made eligible for annexation a few moments ago. Our plan is to, annex all 3. All 3, we're asking for I3 zoning for all 3. And as Ms. Johnson made clear, there's a wide variety of uses you can put in an I3 zone. We don't want all of them. We just want 3 of them. And you'll also, I think, in your packet discover that we have agreed that everything in the floodway reverts to ag once we're done our mining activities. This is obviously an ag site. These were taken a few weeks before the pictures that Ms. Johnson put up, but it's quite flat. All these photos are looking north. We're asking for an asphalt plant and recycling of asphalt and concrete materials yard and sand and gravel mining. This is the basic site plan, which is still under review at the staff level. That's about how it's going to lay out. And this is probably the better picture. This is 394. 85 is over here. Weld County Road 35 intersects with 394 right here. And there's the right of way for 35, which will one day be extended north over the river. Current access to the site is right here. The access permit, which was just approved by Weld County last week, moves the access point 300 yards or some distance as required by county from Weld County Road 35. That's the new access point. We propose to put an asphalt plant on the southern edge of the westernmost parcel. Again, if you recall the slide you saw earlier, the floodway runs roughly like this across the properties. We can't develop north of in the floodway. We have to develop south of it. There will also be some recycling activities located north of the plant and a wash plant over here that just washes the aggregates. This is the plant that will be moving here. This is located currently in Firestone, Colorado. I'd ask when you're looking at this picture to take a look at this building right here because it gets to the regulatory aspects of this that I'll go to in a minute. That's called the bag house. That's what scrubs the emissions from these plants. This is the site. This is the old access point, currently before the county just approved the new one. But this is looking north, and this is superimposed to scale the image of the plant that you just saw in Firestone on the site. That's what it'll look like from the road. This is what it currently looks like from the road without the plant obviously superimposed. This is looking west along 394. Again, here you have the plant to scale that you just saw in Firestone superimposed on the image. This is what you see today with nothing on the site. These are heavily regulated. And Greg Garris is here and he can speak to the regulatory issues or all the regulatory agencies that we have to deal with in citing both an asphalt plant and an aggregate mine. But it is a heavily regulated industry. The state has a say in virtually everything we do. And the other point I want to make is asphalt plants today are not the asphalt plants we grew up with as kids. They have cleaned them up tremendously. Emissions from asphalt plants have been reduced by 97% in the last 50 years. The EPA and the states have really cleaned these up. And that bag house that I pointed out in the picture at our plant in Firestone is what does it. That large structure is full of thousands of 6 or 8 foot long tubes that have filters that filter all the emissions coming out of the plant. And finally, recycling. We will be doing concrete and asphalt recycling on the site, and that's basically crushing asphalt and concrete, or asphalt in this case, the most recycled material in North America. They say 80% gets recycled. I think it's probably more than that. But everything we recycle means less that goes into the landfill. So we save on landfill space. We either put the recycled material back in the mix for new asphalt, or we use it as road base. Some facts on what we call RAP, recycled asphalt product. And the benefits, obviously, the more we recycle, the less we have to mine. Truth is, there's an insatiable appetite for aggregates in Colorado with all the roads we're building. So we still have to mine, but we do use a lot of recycled material as well. There are some who want to talk about the environmental issues associated with asphalt plants. This is one of my favorite pictures. We have a lot of pictures of eagles and other wildlife on our plants. This is our facility in Fort Lupton. These 2 birds are right there. This is the close-up. Prairie eagles, we see them on our plants. We see them on our aggregate piles all the time. I think they like it because it gives them some elevation so they can see the prairie dogs better. I have a summary, but I think your staff report summarizes this very well. There are about 9 criteria that you go through in order to justify an annexation and change the zone. Frankly, I could cover a couple. I would like to cover a couple of them. There is frankly an insatiable appetite for aggregates in Colorado. We, as a company, have only begun to develop the Northern Colorado market, but we will be here for a long time. And we're planning a slow roll on this. We're going to mine it from west to east, and we're looking at about a 30 or 40 year mine. And it's not all going to be opened at once. We anticipate that the westernmost parcel, the smallest of the 3, will be mined over the next 7 to 10 years. And then the other 2 sites will be opened up in time. So you're not going to see a 150-acre aggregate mine at once. It will be mined in a progressive manner from west to east. It's the correct use for this property at this time. There's a policy in Colorado, it's in legislation, but it reflects more of a policy than it does law, that really you should use the aggregates on the site before you develop it into something else. And this is floodway. It will make a use for something 40 years from now, but it's optimal to get the aggregates out now before the city develops south and before other uses can be developed on the site of one stripe or another. And I understand that there are some who say one of you is concerned about annexing south of the river. I can tell you from our perspective, Evans is the place to be. First of all, it's contiguous with the other property that we already have in Evans. And when it comes across the river, we think it'll be a great addition for our city in 40 years, 30 years, when you have that available. And there's economic benefits. We anticipate that you have the economic impact study. We'll have about 36 jobs locally. And we do, over time, hire locally. We pay well, but if you look at all our other sites, everybody who works at our other sites lives in relatively close proximity. So that's my presentation. Tried to be short, and did I keep it to 10 minutes?
You did great. You did great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Well, hold on to say, we will have some questions for you, but it's still a public hearing, so I'm going to ask if there's anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, seeing none, now we'll have some questions. I'm sure somebody will have some for you. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Just a quick question. I'm sure that there's going to be some concerns about the impact of the neighborhoods around there with traffic and everything. How are you planning to mitigate the traffic and everything? Because I'm sure there's going to be an increase throughout that area.
There will. Our traffic study estimates an average of 58 trucks per day. We've had actually 2 or 3 meetings with your staff, one that included CDOT, LaSalle, and I think even Greeley was there. LaSalle is very concerned about traffic that currently, not ours, but others like Ensign and others that come down and cut down and go into LaSalle so they can get to the traffic light and make a left on 85. We have agreed that our trucks are not going to go through LaSalle. Right now, I think we're anticipating about 70% of the trucks are going to go east to 85 on 394, and the other 30% are going to go south on 35. Most of our business currently is south. As the markets develop to the north, we will work with CDOT, we will work with Evans, we'll work with Weld County about possibly putting a light at 394 and 85. We would certainly welcome that. LaSalle would welcome that. CDOT does not want it at this time because the traffic warrants are not there. But it's in our interest. We're a transportation company. I mean, we run a lot of trucks. It's what we do. So we want the roads. We not only want to build roads, but we want the roads that our drivers drive on to be safe. So we will be working going forward with CDOT and the cities and the county to make sure that 394 and 85 is the best we can. So right now, we're not going to have that much in the way of traffic. And the ideal, Councilman, we know how much traffic is going to be here because it's Firestone light. And we're giving you the numbers that we're using at Firestone, but we're actually, for the first several years, going to have less traffic on this site. We'll be using other plants that are further south for the first few years, but eventually we'll be there. And we're certainly willing to work with the cities, with the county, and with CDOT to improve the intersections.
Anything else, Mayor?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Other questions,
I have a
Mr.
question.
Ward? Yep.
You mentioned your baghouse is used to filter and to ensure like the emissions are low. And I have a question my question is, does that baghouse does it have like a monitoring system to ensure that emissions are low in that area?
I don't know if we have a formal meter on it. We do. We do.
Okay, because
But
I was
I
going to
also
say,
know
how do
that-
you know that it's low?
Right.
You know, so I'm sure you have. I'm sure there was a meter. I just wanted to ensure that. Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Questions, Mr. Ward or staff? Tammy, anything?
I do.
Yep, go ahead.
I'll piggyback off of theirs too. I'm very glad that you did a presentation because I did live next to, not immediately next to, but within about a mile of a asphalt batching place when I was growing up. So I had a little bit of experience with the odor and the manufacturing of it. So you said that you're just going to be doing recycling. You're not going to be doing actual batch making of asphalt then?
No. This plant is moving. Sorry, I misspoke. Or this plant is moving to the site, and this is a hot asphalt batch plant.
Okay.
We are also doing a lot. We will also be doing recycling on the site. And recycling is, I don't want to say sporadic, it's more episodic because recycling, we're a transportation company, and we will do more recycling when we have a job closer to one site or the other to move the material to then be recycled.
And I just have to have my due diligence to put out there of safety issues regarding asphalt. Even the CDC says that it's not a wise idea to have an asphalt making company within city limits or anywhere in the vicinity of residents. There's a lot of statistics. 45% of people that live within a half a mile say that they've had some diverse and deteriorating health conditions with it. I do have concern of it being on the floodplain. According to your actual report, is that there won't be any water leaving there. Any kind of drainage will be going back in, will be either collected or going back into the substrate. And it being so close to the river, I'm concerned about the high water table and any kind of drainage that might go into that. Again, I'm just voicing some of my concerns here. So yeah, the toxins that are released with asphalt include formaldehyde, nickel, and arsenic. Obviously that is great environmental and health concerns and toxicity to people. Also, some complaints are the loss of property use and property value for neighbors. And again, I am very concerned too that is in a flood zone. We have seen big, huge floods And between the groundwater and the flooding, I am concerned about the any kind of health issues that would occur from any of the chemicals that are involved in both cement and that asphalt. I had a few other things. Mr. Clark touched on the roads. That road 394 in the past has been designated as a road that truckers cannot use. I know they make JBS go all the way around. They do not let them go through there. So the neighbors have complained about that with oil and with the cattle trucks before. So I am concerned about that road. That road is kind of deteriorating and small. And then as far as Ms. Johnson had asked about the emissions, and I do know that the regulations on the emissions are mostly compliance based on you kind of self-monitoring, and there isn't a lot of compliance monitors to come out. So you're kind of on the honor system with that. And my question about that is, what's the procedure if the neighbors or community members see a lot of dust or fumes coming from the area?
That was quite a few questions.
There were
quite a number, but start with any.
I'm sorry. A lot of it was comments. I know I'm not going to dissuade you guys to go any way other than where your minds are already set. But for me, a lot of it was I don't want to have someone in the future come back at me and say I didn't do my due diligence with health issues.
Councilwoman Spear, I can assure you, if you grew up next to an asphalt plant, the current ones are burning a lot cleaner than the ones even 10 years ago. It's just a very heavily regulated industry. Our plants are tested, and they're tested. Each one has the manufacturers makes different model plants, and the emissions from all the plants are modeled based on the specific model of plant. And the Colorado Department of Health actually looks at those models and makes a determination as to whether it's within specifications that are allowed. So, and whether the emissions, what fewer are emanating from a plant, are within allowable limits. So it is heavily tested and modeled by the Department of Health. I just, as regards neighbors, I just passed out a study that's been done on asphalt plants, and the biggest threat to asphalt plants on the Front Range of Colorado is people moving their houses up to them, and the land values become too great, so the plants have to move. We're moving from a leased site, and we're not moving because it's been bought out by a home builder. They're doing something else with it, but the land has become more valuable. But that site is in that packet, and the houses have actually moved within about a half mile of us. Again, we're not moving because the houses are there, but home builders and home buyers are buying houses near asphalt plants up and down the Front Range, and a lot of them are being displaced, again, not because of emissions or health concerns, but because of just the real estate values. I also have another study that's been done relative to health issues with asphalt plants generally. It was done by a medical doctor at the University of Colorado system. He, if you will, refutes many of the concerns about health issues with asphalt plants. And what he wrote there for that plant applies to this one as well. As for complaints, the first step would be somebody to call us. And frankly, the one thing you will see, and I wish your fire chief was here, because Joe DeSalvo toured our plant in Firestone last week, and he looked up and there was white smoke coming off it. And he said, "What's the smoke?" And it was steam. It's just hot water. That's the biggest thing you'll ever see emanating from a plant. It looks like smoke, but it's just steam, because the asphalt gets up to 350, 400 degrees inside the silos. And if there's any moisture, it turns to steam. But that's all it is.
And there's no toxins in that?
If there's anything toxic released from a plant, it's well within the limits allowed by the Department of Health. Yeah. And let me just hit it straight on. The only thing we really have on the site is gravel, and about 95% of asphalt is gravel and sand. The other 5%-ish is asphalt oil and lime, essentially. Asphalt oil, when it comes, if you don't heat it, if you don't keep it warm, it congeals. The EPA allows us to store asphalt plant in an open pit in the ground if we choose to. We don't because it's valuable, so we keep it in tanks and we keep it heated so it can stay liquid in some fashion so we can use it, because you have to heat it for it to become pliable. Asphalt oil is a binding agent. And when Joe was at our plant last week, I picked up some recently made asphalt. We had just produced it a couple hours earlier and it had cooled, and I took it in my hand and I rubbed it as hard as I could. And I showed him it didn't come off. It doesn't leach. It doesn't come off the rocks. It binds to the rocks and the sand in the asphalt. And in fact, recycled asphalt product, RAP, is used as a ground covering, and the EPA is good with it because you can take crunched up asphalt, throw it on the ground as a substitute to a paved parking lot, and it will not leach into the ground because the asphalt oil binds to the rock. It doesn't leach, it doesn't separate. It sounds counterintuitive because you look at it and all you see is oil, but only about 4% of asphalt is oil. And it's a special kind of oil that's a bonding agent. And asphalt, first of all, it's a much cleaner from a greenhouse gas standpoint. It's a much better paving material than concrete, which emits a lot of greenhouse gases as it dries. Asphalt is not. And so much of our material is recycled. It's hard to describe the asphalt business as green, but it's as close to a green paving material as you'll find.
So what's the plan, though, on the next 2013 flood? You know, I mean, I even on my property, I had big, huge cement septic tanks that had floated in from down the river. So, you know, it comes across, and that area was totally underwater. It was right on the brink of the town of LaSalle. So when that floods and that's 10 foot underwater, 20 foot underwater, where's all this stuff going? And how are we going to say that the water that's returning back to the river is not contaminated?
Sure. Just to be brutally frank, there's nothing there that's going to contaminate water. The oil is going to congeal. Those towers, I don't know how many tons those towers weigh, but the foundation they're on is 4 feet thick. They're not moving. You can put water under, around them, or over them all day, and those towers are not going to move. The other thing, let me dispel something else for you on this one. When you drive up and down 85 and you see all the piles of aggregates, you're not going to see many of them on this site. You'll see some, but not a lot. Most of our aggregate piles are actually going to be down in the pit. So you're not going to see many large piles on the surface. And if it floods, the pit will flood. And then we'll pump it out and go back to, we just got some wet sand and gravel. It's hard to describe it as inert, but an asphalt plant they look prehistoric. I get it. But there's nothing about them that's really dangerous. And there's nothing there that, were it to flood, would create a hazard.
Yeah, this just wasn't like a flood from your bathtub. I mean, this was the raging river going through it, so it carries things away and everything. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I appreciate you answering all the questions. I was not opposed to getting the aggregate out, getting the sand and the gravel out. Where I was alarmed is from the asphalt portion of it, just because of things that I've known about the asphalt industry. So thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Amanda or Fred, this is the question part of the public hearing. Do you guys have any questions for the applicant or for city staff?
I have no additional questions.
Anyone else? One more shot? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll close the public hearing. Now it's time for council discussion.
I'm definitely in favor of this project. One thing I'll say is, I mean, there could be some hesitation on either side of whether or not to allow this to happen, but I think even if we don't allow them into the city, it's still going to be built. I'd rather have them in Evans and be a part of the city and get, have those jobs created in the city and the money, going back to the community. So I'm in favor of it.
Other comments?
Yeah, I think I greatly appreciate the knowledge and insight that Councilwoman Spear brought in the question she asked, because it was things I didn't think of. To that same point, Mr. Ward, you did an excellent job providing information and had that at your fingertips and clearly possess a level of expertise in this field. So I feel very confident with the information you're bringing forward, and I'm very pleased with the things you had at the ready to answer questions. Very helpful for me, and I really appreciate this application and think it looks really good.
Well, and in that point too, I mean, I came fully prepared to, say no. But because of your ability to answer my questions and kind of reassure me that things have changed and that I think that you will be conducting a really good business here. I mean, I am for it. I know it didn't sound like it, but I am for it now, and I appreciate all the information that you divulged. So.
Councilmember Neal, anything to add?
No, I would add there, we've had some residents in that area come in and talk about one of the roads not being paved. And I know when they were going to put the ethanol plant near further north on this site, there were a lot of concerns about traffic. So I have some minor concerns about traffic, but I think it'll be okay. And I felt for some time that they were going to probably have to put a light there on 85 and 392 because of some of the larger truck traffic that they already have. So
I guess I have one more concern before I'm totally in. How close is that to Valley Packing? Pretty close.
I can measure it, Councilwoman Spear.
Well, my concerns are, again, since I brought up toxins and everything, I mean, they are doing meat processing there and smoking and doing all that stuff. And so I would be concerned about how that would affect that.
So if they were within 500 feet, they received notice of the upcoming hearings, and I am going to try to measure here.
I guess if you had the other map up there of their site map, I think. Oh, no, not that one.
Do you want me to go back to your presentation, Ann?
It was, yeah, that's okay. Kind of like that one, I think. It was another one, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Anyone else?
I just want to say I do appreciate that your site does have a monitoring system and that you also have that bag house, that you're utilizing to filter, and that air quality is something that you discuss because that's definitely important for the area. You want to ensure that toxins are managed at a decent level to standard, and it looks like that's what you're doing. And I do appreciate all the questions Laura mentioned and the fact that you were able to answer those. And so, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, just to make sure that we keep the record clear, I want to make sure council keeps in mind that what you're voting on this time is whether or not those two parcels should be annexed into the city.
Correct.
And if so, should it be zoned I3 for natural resource extraction?
Right.
And what may be confusing is the next item is
what
just
all that was.
consideration of the piece that's already in town and whether it should be also zoned the same way. But that's the next public hearing, which again should be a public hearing with notice it's public hearing. It doesn't say it on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. So,
and Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilwoman Spear, I found Valley Packing in LaSalle, and it is nearly a mile away.
Okay. Yeah, I think half a mile was kind of the threshold for that kind of stuff.
Mr. Kropp, I apologize. Can you reiterate what you said I lacked understanding there.
There are two very similar ordinances that are items 5 and 6. Item 5, you're looking at the two pieces of property that are currently outside the city limits. And you're looking at an ordinance that does two things. First of all, if you approve it, it annexes it and adds those two pieces to the city. And second, it zones those two pieces as I3 for natural resource extraction. And the next item is similar in that it looks at the other piece of property which is already in the city and just considers whether it should be zoned also I3.
Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Annexing, we're just zoning.
Yeah, we're
Annexing
now
and
to
zoning.
change the zone.
We did
Okay,
annexing first.
I'm all for this idea, so I'll get more to that in the next one. So, if there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion. Scott, does this have to be a first reading since it's a public hearing, or are we just approving the ordinance?
This would be a first read. It'll come back to second.
Okay.
I move to approve ordinance number 759-22 as presented to annex the two properties in a chain of zone requests with the proposed conditions of approval and development status on first reading.
Second.
Motion a second to approve ordinance 759-22 as presented to annex the two properties and the change of zone request with the proposed conditions of approval and development standards. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay for the annexing, sorry.
That's okay. Motion passes 6-1. Next item, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 758-22, an application to rezone parcel 0959-35-000005. It's great without my glasses. That was awesome. From planned unit development to industrial I3 within the city of Evans. I will open the public hearing. We'll hear from staff.
Yes, Mayor, this next item will address zoning for the parcel that is already in the city. Turn it over to Ms. Johnson.
All right, thank you, Jim, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So this is the third item for this grouping of land use decisions to make this evening. Again, you heard the eligibility to annex. You just annexed and changed the zone for two parcels at first reading, and this is the first reading for changing the zone of a parcel that's already in Evans from PUD to I3. So this particular parcel is located right here. These are the two parcels that we've just been discussing. This is the right-of-way for 35th Avenue. Again, Will County Road 394. So this is located right here in the floodplain. Again, the same images. This is that particular parcel. Floodway is in the cross-hatching. The floodplain is not. This parcel probably has a little bit more proportionate of the parcel, percentage of the parcel that is outside the floodplain, and this is where the asphalt batch plant could go if approved through their site plan process. Now, again, here's the process flow documents. Public hearings were held with Planning Commission on the 22nd. This information is contained in your packets. If anybody wishes more detailed information, we're happy to explain it, but this does indicate, all the public notice that was required on all applications. Because it was an annexation that required certified mail, the change of zone only required first-class mail, so we did both types of mail. So folks got a certified letter and a first-class letter just to be safe. And then here's the criteria for approval. Now, on this particular one, it was zoned planning unit development by the city through the Platte River Bottom annexation in the early 2000s. And the proposed uses for this portion of the PUD were intended for commercial and residential purposes. But as you can see on the map of the floodplain and floodway, that floodway, nothing can happen in the floodway except for gravel mining, things like that. The property development plans didn't progress through a subdivision as was required for the original PUD. But it was zoned PUD. And it was zoned PUD, and at one point in time through records, the southern or the portion of the property that was annexed, which is this property, and this property up here, they were proposing to do tire recycling on this property up here several years ago. So that never came to fruition. And this property remains PUD with industrial uses. This property and this property were PUD with commercial and residential uses. Again, as Asphalt Specialties has agreed, the portion of all the properties in the floodway, once they're reclaimed and released from the state bond, will revert to agriculture zoning. And then this portion of the property, anything that's in the floodplain, will be rezoned in a future public hearing to a zone district that's compatible with the area. And as the applicant indicated, this could be mined for 30, 40 years. So we don't know what that compatibility is going to be in the future. And maybe the city will want it to remain an asphalt batch plant because you're building the road over the river or some other use. So that can be converted in the future in a public hearing. So with that, there is a motion in your packet. And again, this is an ordinance on first reading. There is a motion in your packet. The applicant's representative is present if you have any additional questions, but with that, it concludes staff's comments.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this item? Hearing none, questions of the council for staff or the applicant? No other questions. I will close the public hearing. Council discussion.
Okay, so now that you guys have annexed it in there, I will
Now you're okay since it's now
now I
it's in the
will
city.
gladly okay the project and the change.
Any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 758-22 as proposed upon first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 758-22 as proposed on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Scott, the next item, item number 8, has 2 public hearings and a resolution number. Are those all 3 separate? Do we need to open those as a separate item? On
Yes,
my
they are.
agenda, it is. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Next up on the agenda is public hearing consideration of ordinance number 760-22 regarding designation of an area or activity of state interest. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The council's had 2 work sessions at this point on the.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. Kansas fan, don't look at your phone.
Rock chalk. Council has had 2 work sessions at this point on the potential adoption of powers, authorities granted through state statute, commonly known as 1041 powers. And the area of state interest that we're talking about tonight is for oil and gas regulation. The impetus for this, as has evolved through your work sessions, is to hopefully collaborate with Weld County, who through a contract with the city would administer the 1041 program for us. But the goal would be to ultimately be able to expedite oil and gas permit processing for projects in Evans through closely working with the state, but mostly having Weld County as our hub for that. With that, I will turn it over to Ann Bess Johnson, who can give just a reminder of the 1041 authority that we're talking about tonight and the process that we've used. And I'll also introduce Jason Maxey, who is with us again. Jason is the director of the Energy Resources Department. Get close. With with Weld County. So Jason's been a great partner, and as the mayor indicated up front, we do have one presentation for this item, one agenda report, but 3 different actions, and the steps that we're taking tonight will be outlined by Ms. Johnson in her overview presentation.
All right, thank you, Jim, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. So you heard, let's see, Planning Commission had a work session topic on November 23rd, 2021, and determined that 1041 powers and regulations for oil and gas is appropriate in the city of Evans, and sent a recommendation on to you in favor of designation areas and activities of state interest, and to request that staff develop 1041 regulations. This was then presented to you on the December 21st, 2021 City Council work session, and you also encourage staff to work together to develop 1041 regulations to designate the area of the city of Evans as it may expand through time for the activities of oil and gas development in the city of Evans. So the first item on your in your packets will be to determine an area and or an activity of state interest. And then the second item will be to then adopt code language. And then the third item will be to consider entering into an intergovernmental agreement with Weld County to process an Evans oil and gas location and location assessment permit in cooperation with the city. So again, very closely, ComDev staff and the attorney and assistant attorney worked very closely in developing these regulations, worked very closely with our partners in Weld County, had several meetings, reading time with Drew and Ann. I'm reading through the code to make sure it all made sense. And so on this particular slide, you can see the different work session presentations and then the first public hearing this evening. So while I'm not as eloquent as Assistant City Attorney Drew Lyman is, the intent and history of a 1041, it was in 1974, House Bill 74-1041. Are you okay?
Oh,
okay. Okay.
That was too much talking on the last one, sorry.
Developed the Areas and Activities of State Interest Act. This developed different areas that you could say are important that require a little bit more thought and regulation, or an activity of state interest, and these are known as 1041 powers. And the resulting local regulations then are 1041 regulations. So municipalities and counties can designate areas or activities, or both, of state interest. And they address concerns regarding future land use activities such as visual, traffic, utility infrastructure, how they affect budget, and that also helps guide development. So areas per Colorado Revised Statute could be a mineral resource area, natural hazards, areas containing historical, archaeological, or natural resources, and areas around key facilities. So activities, not going to read this to you. There are several activities that could be considered an activity of state interest that could impact the community of Evans. These activities, not every one of them will impact the city of Evans, but some of them could. So the process to make a determination is this first item on your agenda right now. And the city needs to determine what's in its best interest, to determine what area or activity you want to have a little extra review of. And then the next step will be to create those regulations. And then generally you can hold a hearing 30 days, but not more than 60 days, at least 30 days, not more than 60 days to create those regulations. But City of Evans staff felt as if you're going to designate something and then you have to put an activity on moratorium, we just thought we'll present it to you all and try to be efficient. So that's what we've been working on. So again, in your packets, there's some history There's the ordinance 76022 is a designating ordinance to designate the area of the city of Evans as it may expand over time and the activity of oil and gas development as an area and activity of state interest in Evans. Then ordinance 76122 will be an ordinance for your consideration to amend Title 18 of the Municipal Code, which is the land use code, to include language that's very similar to what Weld County has for their Weld County oil and gas location assessment permit process. It's been Evansized, and it is now being proposed to be added to our municipal code. Then there is a resolution, number 11/2022, which will consider entering into an intergovernmental agreement with Weld County, and they will process our, instead of a WOGLA, it will be an EOGLA permit for us. And so what that will look like is after Weld County processes, the city of Evans will be at the table, staff will be at the table, ComDev staff will be at the table for the pre-application and for the hearing officer's findings. Once those findings are made, it will come back to you all to ratify those findings and enter into a development agreement with that oil and gas operator to cover things such as visual screening, traffic, noise, other things like that to reduce, the code already has a lot of nuisance mitigation measures built right on in there. So that's what's before you this evening.
If I may, I would ask Jason, since you're here, if you could please just give the council a little bit of an overview of your office and how you are situated to manage these kinds of permitting projects. With an emphasis, I think, if you could help us make the connection. Ann talked about how 1041 gives the council a little more control scrutiny, but it's a little, I think that can be a little misleading when you look at the package here, because the point is to make this more efficient and actually help oil and gas operators to move through the permit process a little faster. So if you could speak to how the city teaming up with the county and working with the state can affect that goal, I think that's helpful. Thanks.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Jim, very much. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Jason Maxey with the Weld County Oil and Gas Energy Department. Pleased to be here tonight, and again, just can't say how much I've enjoyed working with your staff on these rules and regulations and discussions. And some of you know that this has been worked on for close to probably a year now through some of our various meetings of trying to get this set up and get the wheels turning to see if this would be something that City Council would like to consider. So it's a big question that Jim asks, but it is something that is very important. And there are certain statutory items that come along with designating or delegating 1041 authority and taking that authority under state statute regarding timeframes, regarding certain things that the state of Colorado is held to, and oil and gas for Weld County is one of those things. You all know that our county commissioners did the exact same process that you all are considering tonight on first reading. We did this back in 2019, and they did it the exact same way. They designated 1041 authority over the unincorporated areas of Weld County as an area and activity of state interest for mineral resource development. And then right behind that, they adopted our 1041 WOGLA code. And here we are off and running. And this was set up, and there was intention to hopefully partner in the future with municipalities within Weld County or potentially even adjoining counties in northeastern Colorado. So we're very excited that the city of Evans is the first one that we're able to talk to and discuss this with. But some of those things that come along with the designation or delegation of 1041 authority is timeframes at the state. They're statutorily held to respond to oil and gas operators within a designated time frame, unlike other local permitting processes that do not include 1041 authority, to where it can be kind of just in a holding pattern as they continue to ask for more and more information. The other thing that comes along with, I think, partnering with Weld County and the city of Evans together is Weld County. Some of you may know we have a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, with the state of Colorado, which also brings with it certain timeframes and certain responsibilities on both parties, Weld County and the state. And Ann got kind of a front seat to that today. She's had an extremely long day. She was up at our offices today as we were having the very first step in the process, which is included in your rules as well for your consideration, which is the pre-application process. So I know she referenced that earlier with some of the items on your agenda. But that is a true partnership. That's something that is very important, foundational, I say, to the oil and gas permitting process with Weld County. And it's in your code for consideration as well. The state has to be there. They have to. There's no way around it. It's code required. And I think that starts the process off on the right foot by getting their buy-in and bringing them along through the local process, so that they cannot just continue to, kick the can down the road, so to speak, and extend timeframes. So we view this as a great thing to do with the city. And again, we're excited, and I hope that answered the question a little bit as far as some of the ins and outs that are unique for this process and unique with partnering with Weld County that, quite frankly, other jurisdictions may not have, because they don't go this same route. And it also provides a little bit of consistency, if I may say that as well, to oil and gas operators. Instead of having a patchwork quilt, which is already kind of forming across the state of Colorado for oil and gas regulations, it provides a little bit of consistency within Weld County and a municipality for having very similar rules and a consistent process that they're familiar with for about 3 years now, up to this point with Weld County. So hopefully that answered a lot, and I'd be happy to answer other things throughout the presentation as well. Thank you.
And if I may add, so the oil and gas companies that do business in the Evans area were contacted on February 11th and again March 24th, and let them know this is what the city of Evans is thinking about. Didn't hear anything today at our meeting with one of the operators. I said, "Oh, we have a big hearing tonight." The response was, "Yeah, I heard about that. Cool." So there's no concern at all, and I think they were really happy with the consistency that could be offered.
Thank you.
That concludes our remarks.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Any questions down there? All right, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion? Straightforward to me.
It's good for Weld County, and it's good for me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a really great example of governments working together and collaboratively to do what's in the best interest of our residents. And I think that we should be really proud of that, because that doesn't happen as often as I think it should. To your point, Mr. Maxey, I think we're adding consistency to this process and doing it in a way that will benefit all residents of Weld County. And I'm really proud of the work that was done here. So really good job. Thank you.
Other comments? I'm all for this. We live in the greatest county in the state, and it's great to be able to work with you guys at the county and to be the first ones to join you on this. That's pretty cool too. So I'm all in favor of it. So I'm voting yes. There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion on ordinance number 760-22.
I move to approve ordinance number 760-22 as presented to designate the city of Evans an area of state interest for the activity of oil and gas activities.
Second.
On first reading, right?
On first reading.
Yes. I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 760-22 as presented to designate the city of Evans as an area of state interest for the activity of oil and gas activities on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 761-22, developing regulations for such area or activity of state interest. I will open the public hearing. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else
The staff report for this item was presented as part of a prior one.
Great, thank you. So public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, any questions of staff on this one?
No.
None? No? I will close the public hearing. Discussion? Same. If there's no discussion, I entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 761-22, developing regulations for such area or activity of state interest upon first reading.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 761-22 is presented to adopt 1041 regulations on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of resolution number 11-2022, entering into an intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for the use of certain Weld County staff. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. We've presented this concept under the first part of item number 8 on your agenda, so we have no further staff report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff or comments?
None.
And then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 11-2022 as presented and authorize the mayor to execute the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution number 11-2022 as presented and authorize the mayor to execute the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 762-22 to update the 2010 comprehensive plan and adopt the 2021 community master plan. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. If I may, real fast,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you again so much for the time. We really appreciate it. And oops, I pushed a button here inadvertently. Sorry about that. And if I may just say that I know it looked like a lot of you were discouraged that you missed story time or code time with Ann and Drew. I would happily volunteer both of them, and I would even join in if any of you want to sit down and read code with us. I'd be happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Add a lot of inflection.
They're
Yes.
really good.
Yes, we have to. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. So I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. We have come to the conclusion of our comprehensive plan process, and tonight council will have the opportunity to adopt the land use master plan with this item. This one does favor an ordinance as the way to adopt, so that's what we have for you tonight. I will turn it over to Ann Bess Johnson for a relatively brief overview. Before I do, though, I do just want to editorialize for a moment that this is a big step for Evans. And this process, as you know, has been almost 2 years long if you consider all the planning time, the time that Mayor Rudy and Councilmember Mortensen spent actually with our master plan steering committee. So it's big in terms of how it will shape our future. And so it's an important item, and we're very proud of the work that you've done. And I'll turn it over to Ann for a summary of the process.
Thank you, Jim, and to Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Mortensen, City Council, all of the work sessions you participated in, gave us direction, Planning Commission, Master Plan Steering Committee, and all of the hours of staff that were involved in this. It's nice to see it come to an end, but it's even more fun to start implementing it. Yeah. So what you have before you this evening, you have two packets. The first one will be on the master plan. The second one will be on the transportation master plan. There will be one presentation that kind of covers everything. So again, there was collaboration in this plan's development. There were community surveys, interactive project websites, virtual community workshops, internal meetings with City of Evans staff, and a master plan in a box with the school district. Then there were steering committee meetings twice a month for about 18 months, regional collaboration and coordination again with Evans staff, 2 community open house events, lots of fun, ice cream and drippy kids. It was great. Master plan steering committee meetings, coordination and workshops with City of Evans staff, and then the finalization of the plan. There were intercept events such as setting out for Bike to Work Day and being at Heritage Days. City Council Planning Commission work sessions, the Master Plan Steering Committee meetings, and then the review of the plan by DOLA as well as North Front Range MPO staff. And I do have to say, the amount of work that went into this in the detail and the content of the code, DOLA actually gave the City of Evans huge kudos and said this is one of the best master plans they've seen in a long time.
Wow.
So I want to say thank you to our team members at Ayers and Associates, as well as Fair and Pierce for helping us get there and dealing with crazy staff when we're saying, no, just do this one more thing, and with all of your input too. Okay, so demographics. In the master plan itself, there are these 5 overarching themes, which are great. Evans is young, we're growing, we have a hardworking workforce, our housing is more affordable, and we are incredibly diverse. These are things we need to embrace and carry ourselves forward into the future. Key takeaways are the land use designations that are going to help shape our community over the next decade. Demographic trends are important to watch, and we need to utilize those trends to figure out how to grow in the future. And that the plan is going to build off the vision and values, and it is structured that way for implementation. So moving now into the master plan. There are 4 main vision and values. 1, quality of life within reach. Your distinctly welcoming hometown, redefining work-life balance, and connecting you to everything that matters. These are the 4 actions. These are the 4 vision items. Values are based on that, and then action items and strategy actions are all following behind there on how are we going to implement this plan. So best management practices for a master plan. A lot of communities, hey, we're done with our comp plan, put it on a shelf, and we're going to think about it. Well, we're not going to do that in Evans because the vision and values serve as the basis for the plan and the plan activities. There are concepts that are captured in these vision and value statements, and they come directly from community input gathered during this planning process. In fact, at the May event at City Park, we had people come up and say, you actually listened to us. You've put our input into this plan. And of course we did. It can be used, and then the plan can be used as a method to communicate and to frame big ideas as the city works to implement small steps to get to that big idea. So again, these are best management practices, and we're going to be implementing it this way. So again, how to use a master plan. I'm not going to go into the details on this particular slide. This was rolled out to you all on your meeting on January 29th. It's how we're going to look at it. It takes a snapshot, key indicators, and then implementation steps. Again, this was went over at the meeting on January 29th. It's telling us here are the vision and values and the principal statements in the 2 left-hand columns. Then here are all the strategies that can help us accomplish these goals. And then this tells us how soon is it, low-hanging fruit, or is it something that's going to require a lot of initiative? We'll go behind there. And again, this is our future land use map as proposed with this master plan update. And then with that, I'm going to stop right now, and then we can pick up this slideshow when we open the discussion on the transportation master plan. But some of those same concepts will roll on over. So again, in your packets, you see we did receive a nice substantial grant from the Division of Local Affairs to help us with this work. Staff started working on this about December of 2019. And then we had the Master Plan Steering Committee selected late summer. We had Ayers on board late summer, and then Fair and Pierce on board as well. In your packet, there is a lot of information and details regarding all of the community outreach that was conducted. Lots of outreach was done with the citizens and the residents of Evans, but we also reached out to our regional neighbors because we wanted them to be a part of this. And there are suggested motions in your packet, and with this concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you. It's a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing none, any questions of staff?
No questions.
No.
I'll close the public hearing. Comments?
I want to say, of course, thank you to Mayor Rudy and Councilwoman Mortensen for being on the committee. But one thing I really want to say is thank you to those individuals that were on the steering committee that also participated in this, and all the residents of the city of Evans. This is their plan, not ours. This was a collaboration by everybody in the city. So I think this is a great plan, and I'm looking forward to approving it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Other comments?
I have the groups that we had helping us, Ayers and Associates, and then yes, they did great work, but also the staff.
Yes.
And Randy, they all really put a lot of time and effort into this, and thank you guys as well for, listening to all of our input and implementing it into this plan. So thank you as well to you all.
Anyone else?
Well, I just wanted to comment on the comment that you had at City Park, where someone said, wow, you listened to us. I don't think that was done previously, so it's really good to hear that the staff's implemented everything that the citizens wanted. So thank you very much.
I'll add to that. I was there at that at City Park, and I was able to hear a lot of that feedback, and it was just great. There was a lot of energy. I think all the people that were there participating, just seeing that all their ideas were heard, and they were on paper. I mean, they were just excited. It was very, very a well engaged and it was just a great event. Overall, I think it was well attended. It was just nice to see everyone working together and all the parties that were a part of this there to really emphasize the importance of this plan and just all that hard work that went into it. I mean, I was able to see it there. And thank you for the mayor and then council member Mortensen for being a part of the committee and staff and everyone involved. Thank you, Ann.
Anyone else? I'll just say thank you, Ann. Personally, you ran that awesome. It was a lot of fun to be on and to do, to be quite honest. And I really enjoyed working with you, Tammy, and everyone else was on there. So thank you very much. You spearheaded it. You were great every time. So you did a great job. Are there any other comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 762-22 on first reading as presented to adopt an update to the 2010 comprehensive plan.
Second. Motion is second to approve ordinance number 762-22 on first reading as presented to adopt an update to the 2010 comprehensive plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On first reading. Motion passes. This next one is not a public hearing though, correct? Next item, consideration of resolution number 13-2022 to update the 2004 Transportation Master Plan and to adopt the 2021 Multimodal Transportation Master Plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar introduction here. This is an important step for Evans, and there's a very practical import for this in that we've heard feedback from some of our partners in the area, funding partners at the MPO, for instance, that Evans really will benefit from an updated transportation plan. And this will meet that interest and will have our latest and greatest plans for transportation that outline all of the things that will help us to be even more competitive for grants in the future. So wanted to note that, but I will turn it over to Ms. Johnson for a summary of this process. And then this one is adopted by resolution, and we'll be seeking your action on that following our presentation.
Thanks, Jim, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We had the luxury of having two master plans going on at the same time. So Fair and Piers and Ayers Associates did a wonderful job of blending all of the community engagement activities. So they were able to capture the energy of the master plan steering committee as well as input from residents all together at the same time. So it wasn't over meeting, overdue. it was all done together. So it was really nice. So there are these performance measure categories: safety, motor vehicles, bikes, and pedestrian transit, and then overall implementation of this plan are included in the transportation master plan. So they did an assessment of, what are the current pain points? Where are our weaknesses? Where are our strengths? Kind of that current state analysis. They gathered all of that information, and then they started listening to people and addressing what the future transportation needs are for the city of Evans. So their findings are, of course, roadway projects, transit, active transportation, and then programs and policies. And that's how the transportation master plan is divided into those categories. So again, mobility, operations, multimodal, economic development, and quality of life. They tried to mirror some of the same themes in the master plan so that it would be easy for residents to read and for staff to implement. They also included in their master plan anticipated revenues for projects, as well as anticipated costs of those projects. And what's really beautiful about this is, as time goes by, of course, we're going to get further away from this moment in time with that anticipated budget, but we can update those budgets. But we can go to granting agencies and say, we have X, it's in our plan. The city of Evans deems this important. And so we're a little bit more competitive by having this in our master plan. And then there's a summary of funding opportunities. Again, those potential grant sources. There is a little bit of slush left over with Fair and Peers, and we're starting to look at a Safe Routes to School grant. And there's another grant, I want to like MMOTFP. I forget all the acronyms. Randy will know what they are. But we're working on some of those preliminary scoring with Mark and his team, and Scott Sandridge and his team, coming up with getting some good grant applications together for that. So full list of funding opportunities are in Chapter 9. Again, Evans is developing a dashboard that will help track performance measures for all of the plans, both plans. And that will be presented to you in early to mid-spring or early summer, that dashboard. And then progress towards that master plan will be reported publicly as well, so that we're accountable for what we've heard from citizens. What we've heard from input, it's holding the city accountable. And with that, that concludes the presentation, and I am available if you have any questions. There are suggested motions for this resolution in your packet.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone have questions for Ann or any comments on this?
No.
No questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 13-2022 as presented, to adopt the multimodal master plan as a resource and guiding document.
Second.
Motion and second to approve resolution number 13-2022 as presented, to adopt the multimodal master plan as a resource and guiding document. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Ann.
Great job.
This time I will ask council real quick, does anyone need a 5-minute break? We've been going for 3.5 hours. You do? Yeah. All right, we will sit in recess. It is 8:33. We will reconvene at 8:38. Jim, are you trying not to look?
No, I'm not trying not to look.
Then don't look.
Yeah. No. Confess to one look a few minutes ago.
I think about it like
it's either going to be you're going to
Yeah,
have a good night, or it's going to be the best. Right, I think so.
Yes, exactly.
Depends on how long you're in. Exactly. Right.
We're going to miss it. Yeah, it'll be over.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah. Mine was more like social, so I needed to learn to be social without it. And I'm glad I saw that.
Yeah. Where they are for the hearings, we make sure they come across.
You were more fun. You were more fun.
I will have to.
Well, they grouped it, so that makes it easy.
Nobody really knew what my water
No,
bottle
I kept on saying it was back out.
I noticed that you come to less of the council meetings in person now. Since
That's why, because I'm so.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun in person while you were doing it.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
This is sad.
Oh, it's like bumper full for bikes.
Yeah, well, it's like.
I guess I don't have to go to the bathroom. I don't have to.
Yeah, you drunk more. Look, I've even been taking sips tonight because I'm like, I don't want to be the one to go to the bathroom 20 times.
Okay. I'll sit here by myself.
Sorry.
I don't got no friends. After that.
I know. It's not solid. I know. Running over people, but.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Anything is visually slow.
We'll see. Right. Just say yes. Right. Yeah.
It's on.
So we can just have some slush. We found some place more work.
Oh. So we had to use it all.
Not the explanation though. Slush is not something that makes me cringe.
Okay.
We never talk about the engineers on the slush. No. Cool. Good job, Ian.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Oh, is that the trick? No, well now I'm so just.
Yeah, I know, right?
I just have one more. Somebody did catch it.
I'm glad I caught that at the last minute for the public hearing for the annexation because I didn't want to have something technically like that negate it.
Yeah. It's still here what he wants to do. Whether it's a motorcycle, I've been on recreational vehicles. Sure.
I'd rather cover our butts. Yeah,
You want to
exactly.
stretch the legs?
I can't eat pizza right now because
You're
I
good?
have like.
No?
Well, it's a weird situation. They just
It
come and
just
go.
like does it's a wave thing. Just one day.
Yeah, you're probably used to it.
A few
Yeah.
weeks are fine. Wow.
And so, for some reason, I don't know what they spice it with, but
I only want to get up stiff one day, not 2 times.
I can't eat pizza anymore.
Got a 1 minute warning and we'll start in 1 minute.
Okay, I'm gonna tap this.
It's supposed to be 2 minutes.
Right here.
Good morning.
I have like an eraser. Foot sitting swollen on my toes. I thought it was like gout now. Oh, sorry. I mean, but then I've had psoriasis.
I even left my tablet. I forgot the meeting was today. I kept thinking, it's tomorrow, it's tomorrow.
I mean,
I was like, I'm going home to spring clean my living room because I'm going on a trip later.
Rheumatologist.
Well, can't do that. I had a meeting.
Is that what you're doing?
Oh,
The interviews for whoever for the vacancy.
Well,
I'm
you're
gonna be
lucky because we call
Right.
like our annual exam
Or
and like
school
schedule them for
bus.
June.
Yes,
Really?
it's in
June.
I've had that planned for.
Of course you get a vacation.
I can't.
So I had a sinus infection and I decided that everything is.
You guys ready?
Yeah, exactly.
And I decided I was going to self-medicate with my
All right, we will I'll bring the meeting back to order.
antibiotics.
Next up on the agenda is consideration of property acquisition for the 37th Street widening project. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As council's aware, we're working toward the start of construction on our 37th Street widening project this summer. Acquisition of right-of-way for that project and also the next phase of 37th Street widening have been underway, and we're making good progress. So tonight we have the latest parcels for council's consideration so that we can keep on edging toward that construction project this summer. We have our city engineer, Mark Oberschmidt, who will give an overview of the right-of-way itself and our process and offers to these property owners for their property.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Jim said, we're purchasing right away as we proceed through the process. Tonight, we have the last piece we need for phase 1, which we're going to start construction on later this year, in a couple months. And the other piece that we're purchasing is from the Hunsaker family, which is further east into phase 2. There'll be a few more parcels coming in the next few meetings, and the overall goal is to have all the right-of-way acquired for the 37th Street phases 1 and 2 by the end of the year, because then the project will be shovel-ready to go in this next year. So tonight we have the Mike Wiedemann piece, which is the farm piece. It's in phase 1. It's at the eastern end, or a portion of the property is at the eastern end of phase 1, and another portion is actually in phase 2. And as I said, the Rebecca and Peter Hunsaker property with the big barn at the eastern end of the site. The appraisal process, we completed an appraisal. We made the offer. We negotiated back and forth. All the property owners are advised that they're able to get their own appraisal. In this case, nobody wanted their own appraisal, so no additional appraisals were done. We came to terms on the offer. In general, the offers range from $1.20, $1.50 for ag land up to almost $3 for developed commercial or residential properties. And they're falling in line with what we're seeing. And the appraisals are always done with the as latest and greatest sales information as possible. So obviously, the longer we take to do the appraisals, the higher the number might go. Currently, we have overall budgeted $1.5 million for right-of-way acquisition. And at this point in time, with the offers that are on the table right now, we're just over $1 million, and that includes everything except for the Brinkle property, the easements down to the draw for the storm sewer that goes down to the draw from the eastern end of the project. So it looks like we should be able to stay under the $1.5 million budget that we have for the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions?
Mark answered my question, which was how much per square foot. So awesome.
The only question I have is on the remaining properties, when would we anticipate similar transactions to occur?
A lot of them I've already got offers in and they're ready to accept. We know one of them is going to wait until July because the current owner is in the process of selling to another buyer. And he's asked that buyer to be the responsible party for when that right-of-way transaction occurs. That's in phase 2. So it's not something that's going to hold us up as far as phase one.
Okay, thank you.
So I do have another question. I'm assuming that the dairy property was part of the right-of-way purchase?
Yes.
So who's actually, and this is more of a curiosity thing, are we paying to have their fence moved back? Or, I mean, how does that go?
With Mike's fence, we're paying him for the loss of the fence, and then he can build it back. We don't actually build it back.
Okay, great.
Right. So anything that gets lost in the process, a tree, a fence, a structure, we pay him for that, and then we don't build it back, because putting it back adds liability on the city to not comply with their exact demands.
He's gonna put his fence back and cut off cattle bunks and stuff like that, feed bunks and stuff that he needs to. But so then we're gonna be responsible again for removing trees.
Yes.
So we bought some trees.
I bought some very expensive trees.
Yes. They need to be chopped up for firewood. They're really bad.
There's plenty of firewood. We just got to find a place to store it so people can come pick it up.
Yeah. Right.
At least one or one. We got room.
Yep. First Avenue block.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on the first item.
Sure. I move to approve the purchase agreement with Mike Wiedemann for the property described on the attached documents for phases 1 and 2 of the 37th Street Widening project in the total amount of $112,810 plus closing costs, and to authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement and the city manager to sign all subsequent closing documents to complete the transaction.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the purchase agreement with Mike Wiedemann for property described on the attached documents for phases 1 and 2 of the 37th Street Widening project with a total amount of $112,810 plus closing costs, and authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement and the city manager to sign all subsequent closing documents to complete the transaction. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Action 2.
I move to approve the purchase agreement with Rebecca and Peter Hunsaker for the property described on the attached documents for phase 2 of the 37th Street Widening project in the amount of $264,650 plus closing costs, and to authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement and the city manager to sign all subsequent closing documents to complete the transaction.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the purchase agreement with Rebecca and Peter Hunsaker for the property described on the attached document for phase 2 of the 37th Street Widening project in the amount of $264,650 plus closing costs, and to authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreement, the city manager to sign all subsequent closing documents to complete the transaction. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, excuse me, consideration of approval of change order for the Evans East Side Storm Sewer to include BT Construction Surface Utility Engineering additional services. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is some more progress on the East Side Stormwater Project design work that is ongoing. As council knows, this is quite a complex project. I'll end my comments by saying we don't take change orders lightly, but this was one that Mark brought forward again in the interest of more information up front will save us money in construction on the back. So I think a lot of this, once you get into the actual alignment and subsurface, it's hard to tell what they're going to find. And with that, I'll ask Mark to talk a little bit what they are finding, the need for the change order, and then we'll ask for your support to keep that project moving.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Jim said, this change order came about back in 2019 when we started this project. We estimated 20 potholes for this stretch, and it's several miles, and we had no idea of the exact alignment of what the pipe would look like. Or, in fact, at that point, we didn't have any utility mapping. So 20 was a guess at best, and for future reference, we're going to try to get utility mapping in advance so we can make better guesses. But this was 2019. This was the first shot out of the door. So when we got into the actual final alignment, that's when we determined what type of potholing or subsurface utility engineering we needed to complete. And we ended up completing 67 potholes for gas, cable, water lines, sewer lines, everything you can imagine that's underground, and 7 of those were in the railroad right of way. So then that required additional effort on in terms of having security, safety, whatnot, because there's a very important fiber optic line that runs up the railroad right of way all the way up to the Air Force Base in Cheyenne. So we had to be careful around all that. So that's what we had to do as part of this process. BT Construction was very efficient about getting it done, but it was a much larger effort than we had originally estimated, or they had estimated in the original contract. So what we're looking at here is roughly a change order in the amount of $112,000 and change for a net new contract total of $358,454.91. It will save us in the long run because now we know pretty much what we need to know as far as what's underground. We know what we do need to relocate and what we don't need to relocate. And working with Atmos Gas, they have an 8-inch high-pressure gas line on the east side of State Street, right in line with 35th. And I met them out there, and they said, "Please, Mark, don't make us relocate this." So we've come to we found it. We know where it is vertically, and we know how we can cross it without having them relocate it. So in that sense, we saved everybody some money on that one. And all the other ones we're finding were just pretty minimal relocation at this point because of this. So the information we have gives the contractor a little more confidence when he starts digging that he's not going to run into anything and have a delay or an increase in cost. So this is all about risk management, and this change order will reduce our risk on the back end. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions or comments for Mark? I'm done.
No, I just want to say thank you for your due diligence and definitely saving everyone money, and that just, speaks to the work that you do and all the being proactive and ensuring that we're doing the best for the city. So thank you.
Mark, did you fill your potholes back in?
Which ones? We try not to leave those open.
We have a lot of potholes,
Right.
and you
Here-
put more
here you just
there,
add
and
another
then you didn't fill them
75.
back in.
No, they filled them.
Sorry, just had to
Anyone else?
crack a joke there.
Well done.
Hearing none, entertain a motion.
I move to I move to approve the change order to the contract with BP Construction Incorporated for the East Side Storm Sewer 35th Street Outfall Project in the amount of $112,164.94, increasing the not to exceed contract amount to $358,454.91.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the change order for the contract with BT Construction for the East Side Storm Sewer 35th Street Outfall Project in the amount of $112,164.94, increasing the not to exceed contract amount to $358,454.91. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of approval of the Ashcroft Sewer and Trail Design Contracts. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that's real important that we take action on. As council's aware, in our longer-term capital plan, we have a replacement of the Ashcroft Drive sewer line, and that's still a couple of years.
Hopefully
next year away.
For next year.
Our staff has come across some urgent repair needs here, and I will ask Mark to kind of summarize the situation and why we need to do something this year to prevent bigger problems. And I will also ask Mark to summarize our bids and recommendation.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of council. For those of you who haven't been out to the Ashcroft Draw, there's a 70-foot section of 24-inch sanitary sewer that's exposed on the bank. It's been exposed for not quite a year. It got washed out in one of the early storms last spring. It's still holding, and we check it on a regular basis, so it's not in danger of collapsing or sending effluent into the creek. But we have, we're going to have a repair started on that in the next week or so with Naranjo Construction. It's under $100,000, so it won't be coming to council for approval. We negotiated a cost with them after looking at several options. The reason I called Naranjo is because they do work in rivers and streams all over northern Colorado, and it's one of their expertise that they have over a lot of other contractors, plus they're local. So that's in the works. With this project.
Thank you. Mark is smoothly covering his city manager's introductory comment where I was talking about an emergency repair underway. This is actually for the design contract. So
okay, well, the design
Mark,
contract is what you're looking at here as far as the staff memo. One of the reasons that we're doing this is because over the last 3 years, we've had 3 of these repairs where the sewer was exposed along the bank because of the proximity that it was built next to the bank. In one location that we're looking at right now, the manhole is literally right at the edge of the bank. When I walked up and saw it, I'm like, why did they put it there? So what we're going to do is we're going to realign it. We're going to reduce the number of manholes from 25 to maybe 16 or 17 by running longer, straighter runs of pipe. And we're going to move it away from the bank at least 10 or 15 feet. In addition, the plan is to put a 10-foot wide concrete trail along the alignment of the sewer to not only allow for pedestrian and bike access, but also for maintenance vehicles to get in there and vacuum out the sewer when needed. So it'll be a heavy-duty trail. It'll run essentially from 49th Street all the way up to Arrowhead Drive. We received 6 proposals for this project from 6 different engineering consultants, ranging in price from $148,000 to about $255,000. What I do on all these projects is I look at their qualifications and their expertise and their knowledge of the location and see what they know, and then we throw the price into the mix. So it's not always going to be the low cost engineering consultant that I'm going to go with. In this case, Ditesco was not the low bid, but they had the highest score. They were already familiar with these repairs because they helped Garney do the repairs a couple years ago on the other 2 locations. So, and then they also showed me some ideas on how they were actually going to lay out this pipe along the line of keep it away from the bank and keep it moving forward. So that's why I'm recommending Ditesco to be awarded this contract in the amount of $159,322. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions of staff or comments?
I'm going to comment. I know why they put it so close to the river, so they could sell another 3 feet of property to somebody.
I think it was more to stay out of the farmer's field myself, but that's my thing.
Could be true.
Comments or questions on this end? Hearing none, we can entertain a motion.
Move to award the Ashcroft Draw sanitary sewer and trail design contract to Ditesco in the amount of $159,322 with an approximate 10% contingency to be used only with city manager approval for a not to exceed amount of $174,250.
Second. I have a motion and a second to award the Ashcroft Draw sanitary sewer and trail design contract to Ditesco in the amount of $159,322 with a 10% contingency to be used only with city manager approval for a not to exceed amount of $174,250. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks, Mark. Next item, report, city manager.
Just one, Mayor. I want to just call your attention to a letter that's been sent to all residents with non-potable irrigation service. This is in the manager's update. Just not that you have to read that now, but that this is the time of year when we get questions. You may also get questions about how non-potable irrigation is billed. You know, the irrigation season starts mid-April, but the non-potable water system isn't turned on till June 15th. So we just explain and try to reiterate so people know that they are charged for potable water until June 15th. Then they have the summer irrigation season. And then at the end of the summer irrigation season, after the ditch is turned off, they are back on potable water. So certainly if you hear questions from your neighbors, we're always happy to reinforce those messages, meet with any groups that are interested. But tis the season for irrigation and thinking about things like that. The letter also just included good general information about water conservation on lawns and also the water regulations that we currently have in place. That's all I have, Mayor.
To be clear, that's the non-potable system, not the
ditch.
flood.
Correct.
And can I add something to this? Sorry, one of the first things on your city manager's weekly thing is something staff produced, April's Evans TV. I just want to, if anybody out there is listening, if you guys haven't seen that, they do a really good job with that production, and it is very helpful updating what's happening in the city. So I want to say thank you to the staff for doing that. They do a good job.
Thank you. I'll pass it
And
along.
everybody watch it. The 14 people who are watching this.
City Attorney.
We have a couple items to talk about in executive session, but nothing else.
Okay, thank you. This item is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Seeing none. Go into executive session.
I move to go into executive session to determine the city's position regarding matters that are subject to negotiation with neighboring municipalities, developing strategies, and instruct negotiators in connection with the city's land use master plan pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402, section 4, subsection E.
Second.
Motion and second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.